Hey guys, Nick here, Thrive Entrepreneur. Welcome along to step 5, where we're going to optimize your sales. Like I've mentioned in the past, it's no good having a fantastic lead generation system if you're not following up your lead generation with an effective sales process. And this is really important because I do see businesses from time to time who get a lot of leads in, but they're not handling them very well. They don't have any way to track the leads or manage the leads or prospects and what step they're on in the prospect journey or the customer journey. And they don't really have any structured upsells, like programs that people can go onto once they've, maybe done a free offer or a trial offer. And this just means that you got a hole at the bottom of your bucket and you're losing a lot of money. So, and also you're not providing the value that you could be to other people. So I want to help you optimize your sales. We're going to go into a few different areas, but really we want to start off with ensuring that no one misses out by having an effective lead management system. So you really want to take your customer on a journey, okay? So like I mentioned in the Elegant Business Model course, if you've done that, which I highly recommend you do that before this course, or you've gotten this far, so head back to there and go through that one. But you want to take your customer on a journey. So you start off by you've done the research, so you know what this customer wants, and so you've created the bait, this amazing one thing that they really would love to have, and you've delivered it. And then you want to send them to the next offer after the bait, and you really want to wow them with that offer and have them take you up on that service, and then offer 2 and offer 3. And as they go through these offers, they get even more value, and they pay. They're willing to spend a little bit more money in order to get that extra value. And how does your sales funnel work, and who's in charge of it? So first of all, you really want to draw out a big picture of how your sales funnel looks from a bird's eye view and mind map it. And you really want to put all the pieces in together. So part of this step is actually helping you to put the sales steps in place, and teaching you some sales training that allows you to sell without really selling. And then you need to really direct who's in charge of it, who's going to take care of the sales, who's actually going to deliver the sales process, who's going to take the consultations or the sit down. So you may even want to hire someone who handles this. If not, then definitely take a good look at what you're doing, really grasp it, and what we're going to take you through here, because this is how we increase the amount of money that you make without spending any extra on marketing. Then we implement systems at every stage of the funnel. So don't just wing it when you call up somebody who's grabbed a voucher or they've registered for your low barrier to entry offer. Don't just wing it. Instead, have a script that you're following. Sure, you can go off the script a little bit, but the script is there because you've optimized the phone call to the point where you've already got the questions pre-answered at the start, and there's a reason why you want to have the script, which we're going to go into some of the reasons behind the scripts we're going to share with you, and why you should be implementing. You can model them, so you can take them, copy them, and then you can modify them for your business purposes. And so an example is, you offer the bait, the person grabs the bait like a voucher, they then become a lead, from becoming they then become a lead. Then you call them, and as soon as they get on the phone, they become a prospect. And once you've called them, you book them in for a consultation in your business, and then you deliver the bait and give them that one thing that they'd love to have, and then you upsell them into the next program, something that they would love to have as well. It's going to give them more value, and they're going to pay a little bit more for it. And the real key is upsell the customer into a no-brainer offer by asking yourself the question, how much value can you pack into one offer? So if you start off with a free offer, how much value can you pack into the offer number 1? And then the next step is, how much value can you pack into offer number 2? So you're just trying to squeeze more and more value in at each step of the ladder, or each step of the customer journey. And you want to set up an effective lead management system. So this is just a little screenshot from one of the spreadsheets we use in one of our businesses. And so as soon as a lead comes through, they're going to pop through to your email inbox. You're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to have a look at these leads, and as they're coming in throughout the day, you're going to copy and paste the name, the phone number, the email address here, and then the source. So what page they're registered on, which you'll get that information if you're using an email provider. And your landing pages, which you should be. And then you type in any comments. So once you've called them, you type in some comments about them if necessary, and then that helps you to effectively track your prospects, and you can highlight them as we've done there on the lower part. We've got Carol there, she's highlighted. She's highlighted because she's booked in for a consultation. So that lets us know which leads are still leads that need to be called because they're in white, and in grey or whatever color, any color, that lets us know, or our sales team know, that they've been booked in for a consultation, so they've moved to the next step of the ladder. And we actually use Google Sheets. So if you go to docs.google.com, you can use Google Sheets, and we use those because those spreadsheets because they update in real time. So if two people are in different areas of your business, they can literally log in, they can jump onto the spreadsheet together even if they're at different ends of the office, and they can literally watch the other person typing into the spreadsheet in live real time. And that's really helpful because there's no more sending sheets back and forth to people. You can just work off the one spreadsheet and manage your prospects and your leads in any other areas of your business that you want to, but have updated and live in real time and have a good grasp on what's going on. So once our prospects have been done their consultation, they get moved to another sheet. Maybe it's they've been upsold into our 21-day challenge, so we've moved them over into that particular area. And then maybe once they've finished our 21-day challenge, we've upsold them into our ongoing transformation training, where they move in and become a regular client, and they get moved into the client spreadsheet. So we're just simply pasting or cutting and pasting people from one sheet into the next as they move along their customer journey. So feel free to set up something similar or exactly the same. You can model it whatever way you like. We put location in there just for in case we've got any online clients that are signed up, we can sort of track them, what countries they're coming in from, etc. If you have a particular service that you'd love to get online, feel free to get in contact with us. If you're wanting to, if you're really wanting to get some information products, or getting your service online as well, if you want to reach the rest of the world. Okay, so now we want to, before we get into actually the sales scripts and being on the phone, I want to teach you guys some steps on getting into rapport, because rapport is just another word for trust. And you guys know that I'm trained in NLP and hypnosis, and a lot of what we learn in NLP, the foundations, is all about rapport. So that's about how to build that level of trust where you feel like you've known the person for a while, And I remember sitting down with a client recently, and we sit down at a coffee shop. I opened up my laptop, and he had his laptop open already. So I sat down, we both had our laptops open, and he said, "Oh, how's your day been, Nick?" And I said, "Oh, you're really good, thanks. And how's your day been?" And he said, "Oh, brilliant. We just been busy down at the shop." And and he said, "Oh, lucky you're single, by the way." I said, "Oh, thanks. I can bring you over one because I got about 20 from Bali last time I was over there." And he's like, "Oh, that's good. I love Bali." And I said, "Oh, when was the last time you were there?" And so we got a conversation going about that. Sometimes you catch up with people and it just feels like you've known them forever, And that person I hadn't caught up with that many times, but we get along really well when we do catch up. And so this is that's really the type of result that we're looking for when it comes to catching up with anyone, when it comes to being in our business or outside of our business. So I'm going to teach you guys some foundations of NLP. This is just the very basic, scraping the tip. If you want to learn more about NLP, then certainly we can help you with that with our other programs. If you want to learn more advanced NLP. So we've got the VAK model. So the VAK model stands for visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and auditory digital. And that just stands for a fancy word called representational systems. Really all that means is that we all communicate in different ways. we know this, you know this, but this breaks it down into something you can see and grasp real clearly, and you can hear it in a way that comes across to you as being like, aha, okay, like you have those aha moments. So you have your aha moment while you're going through this, because you're like, oh, that's me, or oh, yes, I know someone like that. So we've got visual, auditory, digital, and kinesthetic here. Sorry, on this page. So visual people, they tend to use images and they use wide gestures. So they use images to remember a lot. They use wide gestures with their hands, like expansive or panoramic type gestures. They tend to have trouble remembering verbal instructions. So if you're a visual person, you're probably terrible at school unless somebody drew a picture on the blackboard. I know all I was doing in school was drawing pictures. And you value how something looks. So you make a lot of a decision based on how something looks. So, you may not be able to be completely sold on something if you only hear about it. You may need to see a picture of it. You may need to see it in person. You may need to, if you really want to trust someone, you may need to see them on video or something like that, right? Or see them in person. So you tend to also use, if you're visual, visual people also tend to use words like, I see that, it's crystal clear, that's really bright. So they're using, visual based words. So if I was describing the beach to someone who's visual, I was down at the beach, down at Sumner Beach recently. If I was describing it to somebody visual, I'd say, oh, I got out there in the sky, there was a little bit of grey cloud in the distance, but it was blue across most of the beach, and the water was beautiful and blue and crisp and clear. And I looked down at my feet, and the sand was really grey, and it's funny like that in Sumner how you get that grey sand there. After being in Australia, I was actually so used to all the white sand, and it looked like diamonds, little diamonds. So that's how you would sort of speak to someone who was very, very, very much visual, and most of us are very much one or the other. We're not all one representational system. We don't use all of one 100%, but we use, we might use 60, 70, 80% of one, which is a predominant, and then we use the other ones to a much lesser degree. So we've all got our preference. There's no wrong or right. It's just the way it is. And then we've got auditory. So these are people who go by tone of voice. So if you're talking really, really quickly and you're really excited about something, then they're going to get, they're really going to pick up on that. Whereas a visual person, you'll lose them almost right away. And also if you're talking, if you say something like, hey, will you pass me the jug? And you say it in that type of way, they're going to be a lot more open to you than if you say, hey, will you pass me the jug? Right? So like the first one is open and friendly, the second one is like more frustrated. So tone of voice is something that auditory people will pick up on a lot because they're all about sounds. And so they're gonna maybe even tilt their head to the side while they're really listening to you if they're engaged. They will repeat back to you words a lot of the time. So you'll be talking about how, oh, you just had a wonderful sleep and you woke up hearing the sound of the birds chirping outside, and they'll sort of tilt their head to the side and they'll go, I love birds chirping outside. I love waking up. And, so they're really going to get engaged by the sound of your voice and how you're speaking. And that's where they're really going to listen. And they'll use words like sound like and rings like a bell and music to my ears and these types of things. So they use sound words when they're talking to you. So that's how you can sort of pick them out. And if I was down at the beach, like I said, I was just down at Sumner. So if I was describing that experience to an auditory person, and then I would be describing it as, oh, I got down to Sumner Beach and the car was roaring its way around the corner there, and by the time I got out of the car, the wind was up and it wasn't too much, but it was breezy. I could hear the wind rustling through past my ears and the seagulls squawking and the waves crashing, and it was a lovely day. It was really, really nice out there. So you would use more auditory words, and then they would hear the sounds like waves crashing, and then they would have a picture about the waves crashing. So that's how you might communicate with an auditory, someone who's using that as a preference. Now over time, some of us will moved from one representational system to another over the years, depending on our job. And say for example, when I work mostly in the website and web design side, I tend to move more into auditory digital, whereas when I was doing more personal training and working more, helping out more down at the gym, I moved into more kinesthetic, which is moving the body more, because as a training you're touching and feeling and grasping things a lot. So auditory digital, this is my default that I tend to move into pretty quick. So these are people who try to make sense out of a lot of things. That's the sort of run that they tend to operate with non-sense based language. So they talk in abstracts a lot. They talk in systems. They talk about concepts and philosophy a lot. They talk about, it's almost like in computer mode, like just click this. Once you click that, you get to here, and then you hit the bonus. And so if I was describing the beach, I might say something like, "Oh, we got down to the beach and it was really amazing. I really like being down at the beach, because when I get there, I look out over the ocean and I just think to myself, as I look out over the ocean, I think about the ever expandingness of the sea and how it's forever deep and forever long, and almost as far as the eye can see, there's just ocean, and the ocean is far deeper than you could imagine, and it's almost like life is like that in a way. It's like no matter how far you go in life, there's always more. No matter how deep you go down the rabbit hole, there's always a further depths that you can get to. And so auditory digital tends to use a lot of abstracts like that. So they talk in abstracts. I don't always talk like that because I'm trained in NLP, so I can talk in the other representational systems using visual or auditory or kinesthetic, which is touch. However, my default always goes back into computer mode, always goes back into abstract. So, of course, I'm right in my zone when I'm teaching you guys this stuff, not just sales, but when I'm teaching you guys these systems and setting up landing pages and funnels and websites. These are all things that make a lot of sense to me. These are all things that I understand really well, and I understand the intricacies and the details, but I can also see the big picture. Okay, and then we've got our last representational system, which is kinesthetic. Okay, so kinesthetic people, they tend to use their body a lot more, so their gestures are more like hand over the heart. They might hold on to themselves, like if they're upset, they might cross their arms and sort of imagine they're holding on to themselves. They use their body more to remember things as well, so that I remember through touch. So if you're teaching somebody who's kinesthetic, if you're teaching them something, whatever you do, don't just like sit there over a textbook and teach them stuff, because they'll only retain like 5% of it, 10% of it, and the rest of the time you'll just be, you'll end up having to make that time up later and reteaching them a second time how to do something, when it would have been faster just to teach them, just to get them to do it themselves, even if it's once. You just teach. It might take you longer in the short term rather than like talking about it with them. But if you do establish their kinesthetic just by listening to them and picking up on these things, then better to take a little bit longer, teach them through touch and having them actually follow along with you and do it themselves, than to just textbook them and talk to them. They tend to use their body to think as well. So when they're making a buying decision, or when they're making an important decision about something, they'll usually kind of touch, like they kind of hold on to put their hand over their chest or touch their chin, and they'll think, how do I feel about this? And so they're all about grasping and feeling things. And a lot of their gestures will be by the body, not just their hands, but the way they move their body will be very, it'll either be open when they're talking about something open, it'll be hunched over when they're closed up about something. So if I was describing my experience at the beach to somebody who was kinesthetic, I would say I was down at Sumner, and as I walked out onto the beach, I could feel the sand crunching beneath my toes and feel the hot sun beaming down on my face and giving me a nice tan, and the wind was breezing past me. But when I actually got to the water and I dipped my feet and it was so cold, I realized I probably wasn't going to swim out there. That day. So instead of swimming, decided to go for a bit of a fast walk along the esplanade. And although my chest felt it, had the certainly felt the my lungs pumping away. It was great to feel the fresh air on my face and feel like you're in the right place at the right time. And that was my experience in the summer. So and a lot of the time when people are in when they prefer a particular type of representational system, they'll actually do what's called a synesthesia. And a synesthesia is where somebody will talk about something like a smell, but they'll use like a feeling word, like, I feel like I can smell the carrots, cooking in the pot there, or it might be a sound, and they'll be like, I can really feel the bass. Coming from that. I really feel like that music is really nice. So they'll talk about something like a sound, but they'll talk about it in terms of feeling. Or you'll be like, I can just what's another word, like if it sounds as if your heart's talking to me. So they or what's another one? Okay, anyway, but you get the general idea. So it's something, for example, if you could visualize the grey sky, but I said, it's like I feel like it's really grey out there today. Well, yeah, I mean, it could look grey out there, but I don't know if it could feel grey. But it will to a kinesthetic person. So you get a rapport with people by first learning, just through starting to communicate with them. Just when you sit down and first start to interact, you can get a rapport a lot faster by picking up what representational system they prefer or what they're using the most, and you can start to communicate using the same ways that they communicate. Because if you're auditory digital and you start talking about abstracts with somebody who's kinesthetic, you'll lose them almost straight away. If they're connecting with people through touch and you're connecting with people through talking about how you were looking out over the ocean and seeing that it just stretches all the way out and all the way deep, further than you can see, they'll be like, yikes, that's abstract. So when you catch up with people, one really quick way to get in rapport is just keeping an eye on what representational system, and you can do this little test yourself. You can type in like a VAK test in Google, or a representational system test in Google, and there's a few out there as well. So that'll be really helpful for you. And the reason being is that people like people who are like them. So and that brings us to the next way of getting in rapport. And these are just some little tips that I can teach you from NLP. A lot of you guys have heard of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins' foundation is in NLP. That was the first communication system that he really grasped really well, and he really ran with it with the founders Richard Bandler and John Grindler, the founders of NLP. And really, NLP is when we're asked to describe it, it's really a way to describe a way of modeling success. It's a way of finding out what makes people successful, and it's a way of duplicating that. So successful in psychotherapy, successful in communication and sales, successful in athletic achievements. So it's the science of excellence. And so modeling is just, it's not copying, but it's finding out what somebody who's been successful has done, and it's a matter of learning what they do with their physical body, how they think about it, and what beliefs they have in place, and then you're able to sort of reverse engineer that from what they've already discovered to be successful, you can reverse engineer it and then try it on yourself, and likely you will have the same success too. So that's really where modeling comes from. It comes from, instead of reinventing the wheel, find somebody who's already got the results you want to achieve and then use that. So mirroring and matching really comes down to voice tonality. So the way somebody's speaking, if they're speaking really, really lightly as a tone of voice, then you want to sort of move your tone of voice up a little bit so that it's just a little bit, it's closer to theirs. Or you can bring it down so that you're speaking really, really, deeply and very gruff. But you may lose that person who's speaking lightly. Tempo as well. So tempo describes, some people will speak and say they might use 5 words, then take a pace, then say another 5 words, then take a break, and then say another 5 words. Whereas other people's tempo is a little bit different. It might be, I was just down at the beach the other day, and then I went to the ice cream parlor, and then I grabbed an ice cream. So their tempo might be like that, whereas the person they're speaking with might be like, I just grabbed my surfboard the other day and it was really awesome, and I went out on the beach and I got to surf for ages. Oh, and you wouldn't believe it. And then, so their tempo is a lot different. So you're sort of trying to match the tempo of words that they're using and the speed they're using. And that sort of falls a little bit into speed. If you're speaking really, really fast and you can't wait to get all your words out, and then you're speaking with somebody who really likes to, they're from down south, and they like to take their time to really think about what they're saying, and before they, say anything else. So they're going to slow all the way down. So if you're speaking with somebody who's a slower talker, doesn't mean they're a slower thinker. It just means they like to pace themselves with their speech. So you want to slow down a little bit. So mirroring and matching just means you're mirroring or matching what people are doing, and these are the different areas you can mirror and match in. Like I said before, people like people who are like them. That's a Tony Robbins quote. Good old Tony Robbins. And volume as well. So if people are really loud, then you can jump up a little bit. You don't have to, necessarily get to their level, but you can jump up a bit. Or if they're speaking really quietly, and I'm speaking to you now, then you might just want to turn your volume down a little bit and just have a conversation with them a little bit quieter. Otherwise, you might fall out of rapport with them really quickly. Facial expressions. So, you can, if they lift their brow up and they rub their chin, you can do the same thing. It doesn't come across as they shouldn't pick up on it. If you're doing it correctly, they won't pick up on it. Because a lot of this stuff happens unconsciously, and if you've ever been in rapport with someone, like I mentioned, I caught up with that person at the cafe, every now and then I'd glance over and we'd already be crossing our arms and he'd be crossing his arms, and we'd be, talking about the last time we were in the hills. We at times, you may not even try to mirror and match, but you'll find yourself doing it anyway. And so that's a great sign of rapport. So mirror hand gestures. If they're hand gestures, or if they're moving their hand over to the right here or pointing somewhere, you can sort of do something similar, or you can use a different hand, or you can a half body or a crossover matching. That refers to somebody folds their legs under the table. You could fold your toes under the table, or I should say ankles. Same as somebody sits on the desk, puts their elbow on the desk and their chin in their hand. Then you could do the same thing but with the other opposite hand, so that you're sort of it's almost like a mirror to them. You can also match predicates and phrases. So when I first caught up with the chap I was telling you about at the cafe there, and he said, "Oh, how's your day been?" And then I repeated back to him, "How's your day been?" And so, "How's your day been going?" And so you can repeat back key phrases as well. Someone's like, "Oh, I was I really love it when I'm able to catch up with my dream customer, and they just can't wait to get started in my business, can't wait to get started with my service. And then you say something like, oh, you know what, I feel the same way. I absolutely love it when one of my customers comes to me and they say, I love your service so much, I've told all my friends about it, and then I get a whole bunch of referrals. That's awesome as well. So you can match the predicates and phrases. That's a really good one a really good way to get in rapport. Now, the same as understanding sameness versus difference, sameness versus matching, and difference versus mismatching. Now, there's 80% of people in the world, or 80% of people in the Western world are what we call matches. And the other 20% are mismatches. And we always know mismatches because we say something like, that movie was awesome, what did you think? They say, no, it was horrible. Or you say, oh, I love the rain, it helps to water the plants and helps to give us a bit of a refreshing sleep. And I love listening to the sound when I go to sleep. And they're like, oh, I hate the rain. I hate the rain. It gets everything wet and I can't go out and do anything. So these are people that tend to, instead of concurring with what you're saying, it almost seems like they're disagreeing with everything. But that's actually their way of relating. And you'll see it in relationships a lot. If you're in a relationship and your partner, say if you say, oh, I really like making a curry out of curry powder, and they might say, oh yeah, I like the curry powder, but I actually like making it from scratch, a little bit more. It may not necessarily be they have a problem with curry powder. It may just be another way of continuing the conversation with you and just relating, bringing another angle, bringing another color to the conversation. So, do keep that in mind. It does show up, especially in relationships. If you've been together a while, you're not always in agreement, and that's all part of just relating. But if you do pick up that you're with a mismatcher, then your sales process will be a lot different because instead of saying, this I think would be ideal for you because of these reasons, and then they will probably turn around and say, well, those are the exact reasons why I shouldn't sign up. So instead of that approach, you would do the opposite. So you would say, here's the reasons why I think you should sign up, but they're probably wrong. You can probably think up much better reasons for why you would sign up. Some of the reasons is this, and this, but I'm probably wrong because I frequently am, but I'd really like to help you out. But what do you think? I think they're wrong, but what do you think? And they will probably turn around and correct you and say, actually, you're right. I do need these things in order to get the results I want. So you can sort of mismatch the mismatcher. And this is just the way that this type of person tends to think. They tend to find the differences in everything instead of the sameness in everything. So if you think about, when they think about what is the relationship between a Google Pixel phone and a Samsung S7, right? If I think of the relationship between them, I could think, well, they're both cell phones and they both come in black and they both have a great camera, right? But a mismatcher will say, well, the Pixel phone has a better quality camera because it has a different algorithm programmed into the phone that actually gives you better low light. So the cameras are nothing like each other. The Pixel camera is much superior. The Pixel also runs the new Android operating system, whereas the S7 runs the old operating system. So they're nothing alike because the new operating system is much better. So you can see what I'm getting at here. The mismatcher will tend to find what is different between X and Y, whereas the matcher, which is most of us, will find the similarities between X and Y. So when you're communicating with someone, most of the time when you sit down with someone, you guys are going to be finding things out about each other that are kind of the same. You're like, oh, you went to this school, I went to that school. That's kind of similar because of this. And you guys can sort of get in rapport really quickly because of that. Whereas a mismatcher is a little different. You can still get in rapport with them. It's just a different approach. How do you compare to X and Y? So, how does your service compare to Excel Fitness and John's Fitness down the road? So, again, the mismatcher will find, okay, well, here's how you guys are different. And that's really helpful in the world, because sometimes to solve a problem, as Albert Einstein said, a problem cannot be solved with the same thinking that created it in the first place. So, in fact, some of us need to switch to mismatching in order to solve problems, in order to make the world a better place. In order to make your business better, you need to see how it's similar to some other businesses, but also how other businesses are different and in what areas. And then, for example, say, well, our online marketing isn't as good as it could be, and these guys are doing it really well. So an area we need to improve is actually our online marketing. And then how do you go about understanding something new? So a mismatcher will seek to find the differences between two things, and then that will be how they understand that something is new, because they're like, oh, well, the Google Pixel is a new phone because it's running the new operating system and it has a better quality camera, and it's only recently been released, whereas the S7's been out a little bit longer, and it has this and that. Whereas if, for example, how do you go about understanding something new as you're listening to this training and you're actually going through this with us? Do you understand something new by looking at how it's similar to something else? Do you say, oh, well, the Google Pixel phone, it's pretty similar an operating system to the S7. I mean, you've still got the main home screen, you've still got the app store, you've still got the settings buttons. They're in slightly different places, but the settings buttons are still there. And you've still got a camera, and the camera's still in the same place. The buttons are in a little bit different place, but you've still got different buttons to adjust the contrast. And it still runs the apps like Facebook and Instagram, the ones that are the most important in the world. Kind of joking there. So you can look at how something is the same in order to understand it, and that can help us to really fast track our learning, because we can create these links between the old thing and the new thing, and how the new thing is actually kind of similar to the old thing, and that helps us to learn things a lot faster. And whereas a mismatcher will learn a lot faster through looking at the differences and saying, oh, well, the cameras, the algorithm's different, the operating system's different, it's a different phone altogether, and that'll be how they learn about the new Pixel phone, for example. Okay. Then we want to go into motivation direction. So when you're speaking with someone, some people are more motivated by away from motivation, and other people are more motivated by towards. So the away from person avoids pain, challenges, and issues. So they're more likely to talk about what they don't want. So when you sit down with them, if it's like a fitness consult, then they're going to say, oh, I really don't want to feel uncomfortable in my clothes anymore, or have to wear a t-shirt at the beach, or I feel uncomfortable when I'm out with my friends in town, and I don't want to be red-faced going up a hill. So they'll talk about all of these things that they want to avoid, whereas the towards motivation person, who's motivated to gain pleasure and more desire-seeking, will say, oh, I really want to get to the top of that hill and feel energized and see the amazing views and feel great. I want to feel comfortable in my clothes, and I really want to feel confident when I'm out with my friends. So they're looking at the goal, and they're focused towards what they want to get. And it's almost like the carrot donkey example. Somebody who's a towards motivated person, you can show them the carrot and they're motivated to get that carrot. Whereas an away from person, if you show them the carrot, they're more likely to say, oh, I don't really know if I'm that motivated. It looks great, but I think I'd rather just stay where I am. Whereas you need to what do they do when they got to get donkeys moving? Give them a little tap on the bum. So sometimes you need to motivate with the stick. And so you might motivate that person by the away from person. You might motivate them by saying, oh, well, how does it feel when you're, out with your friends and you feel uncomfortable in your clothes? And they might go, oh, that's no good, and then you might say, well, how does that affect you? And they might say, oh, well, I just can't enjoy myself. And you're like, well, how does that affect you not being able to enjoy yourself at these, social events? That must suck. And they might say, yeah, it does, yeah. And that will really motivate them to kind of get out of pain and avoid it and get towards, what they want to get towards. Whereas somebody who is focused on getting to a particular goal, you will motivate them by saying, "Oh, well, how would it feel to be confident out with your friends and be able to, be able to enjoy yourself like that?" And they might say, "Oh, that'd be amazing. That's really what motivates me." And they'll be motivated for quite some time just focused on that. Now, most balanced motivation strategies, in an NLP term, are both away from and towards. So, if you want to sufficiently motivate yourself, the best thing you actually can do is to set up the away from and the towards by doing a goal setting session and a SMART goal setting session. So making it specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timed. And then you want to, so that you've got the carrot, and then you want to ask yourself the question, a question similar to what would happen if I didn't achieve this goal? What outcome would I get if I avoided achieving this goal? What is the result of my not achieving this goal? So something like that. And then you would actually come up with all the painful things as a result of not achieving your dream XYZ goal. So that is typically what produces the best motivation, where you fully understand the pain that you could get from not achieving your goal, and you fully understand the pleasure you could get from achieving your goal. And then the only thing that's left is usually to remove some mental blockages. And sometimes in business, I sit down with business owners, I sit down in the inner circle and with some of our inner circle guys, and they say, "Oh yeah, I really want to 10 times my business, but I'm worried that it will reduce family time and make me more stressed." So those are two blockages. So although you can do the goals and you can get clarity on the pain and the pleasure, sometimes there's these barriers in the way, and so usually we need to do a little bit of NLP, a little bit of coaching just to get around the mental barriers and the blockages, move those out of the way, and then we're set free to reach our business goals while still having more time with family, or teaching them to get the best of both worlds. So in a minute, we're going to go into the phone call and version 1.